Hello once again, you're all very welcome to Let's Talk with Esther Agbi. I am Esther Agbi and I have here with me David. You're welcome. Yeah. And I do hope that you're all doing very well. We are having a beautiful weather here as well. I believe you are having a good weather, and I do hope you're also taking time out to just enjoy yourself, relax and have fun. Yeah, so in the previous video we talked about the title was Should Men and Women Receive Equal Wages for Work Done? So this is the part 2. So in the part 1 we talked about the various contributing factors to the reasons why men are found in certain jobs and women are found in other, or more women are found in certain jobs and more men are found in certain jobs. So you can just go back and view the part 1. So by the part 2 we want to narrow it down to actually the wages for men and the wages for women. So should men and women receive equal wages for work done? So I was just looking at my program notes here, and I was wondering, actually, do men and women produce equal work, in terms of quality and quantity? If work can be measured, can we say they produce equal quality and quantity of work?
It depends on the work that's done, right? If it is something that female persons are better at doing generally, sewing or cooking or something that they tend to do better in, then sure, then you'll see that you could say the females have a better quality of work in those areas. If it's something like masonry, carpentry, you might say that men have better production and quality in those areas. But again, each person is different. So I wouldn't say that you can just generalize it and say all females are better at this or all males are better at that. It depends on the type of work that's done, and also depends on the temperament and personality of the person doing the work, whether they be male or female.
Yeah, so you're talking of sewing. I don't want people to look at it like as if we are commonizing the sewing, because like at home I also do. No, I'm just trying to throw more at it. Like at home I do some kind of sewing. Let's say something is torn, I just take needle and just stitch. That's not the sewing you mean here. You're talking about like fashion designer,
or just anything, right? I'm just giving that as an example, as something that I've seen both from you and others as something that female women tend to be better at than men do, maybe because their hands are more they're more careful with those kind of smaller things, whereas men, maybe they like to hold something bigger. So if it's like masonry, that might be something they tend to excel at. But again, that's just a general idea, right? We can't say that that's not the case with everybody, but generally speaking, that's the way it seems to be, and that's the way it seems to trend.
Okay,
that's what I would say.
Yeah, thank you for that. So another aspect I want to look at is, like, can we say that men can work for longer hours than women? Because all these things have to be put into consideration before the wages are set, right? Can we say men can work for longer hours? Because sometimes when I look at the sports, the sports we watch, like sometimes we watch lawn tennis, we find out that when the men are playing, they tend to play longer hours. But when the women are playing, before you just go upstairs and come back within 1 hour, we find out that, it's done, done. So it's like you are yearning for more. So can we say that men, can put in more hours, in terms of duration than women?
I don't know if you can say that per se. Again, it depends on the type of work that's done. If we're talking about physical work, then I would say yes, because men tend to have more testosterone, so they will be able to do more of those heavy labor activities for longer. But if we're talking about something else that maybe men might not be as patient with, such as, I don't know, modeling or something like that, even though that's not physically exerting, that might not be something that a man really wants to do for a prolonged period of time. And so in that sense, maybe a woman might be able to work longer hours for that. But again, like I said, it depends on the temperament. There are some very, very strong women that can outcompete very weaker men than the trend or than the average. And so then in that case, you see that the woman might be able to do those longer hours and laborious work of masonry or carpentry or whatever it might be. But generally, I would say that would be the case. What do you think on that, or do you think it's the same? Or?
Yeah, I think I will agree with you on that note, because it appears it depends on the nature of work, right? Some people, the women can actually put in more hours or more dedicated hours, not necessarily more hours, maybe more dedicated hours than the men. Whereas in certain jobs, the men would, put in more dedicated hours than the women. We just cited the tennis, for example. The tennis, they can go on for like 4 hours, at a stretch.
Right.
Whereas the women, just 1 hour, you can see they're already exhausted. It's like I'm saying, let them round up this thing. Just give it up and let it just, finish and go rest.
Exactly.
Something like that. So, but when we look at the employers having the employees, do you think that they could sometimes be biased against women? I'm saying this thing because, sometimes I'm also an employer, right? You begin to ask when a lady shows up, you say, okay, do you have younger children? Do you have this? Do you intend to get married soon? Do you intend to have any child very soon? Because there's something at the back of your mind when you're asking those questions, because you know for sure when they get pregnant, the efficacy and the output, it would not be as as before, right? And you cannot just stop them, say, oh, stop working because you're pregnant. You have to let them finish the term until they go on maternity and things like that. So I'm just thinking, do you think that employers could be sometimes biased while seeking for employees?
No, I wouldn't quite say that. Well, it depends on who's, again, doing the employing. A woman might be more sympathetic to hiring women because she herself knows how hard it was for her to get into that position. So maybe in that sense there might be a bias. And then the men too. I personally would say I haven't really encountered that problem from interviews that I've seen and places I've been. It seems to be a fairly reasonable split based on the type of work and based on the needs of the company. And just giving ourselves as an example, or even Dad too, when he has hired people, he's taking a mix. Sometimes they're female, sometimes they're male people. So you can't really say. Well, I would say that it's getting better in that regard. Maybe in 1900s it might have been more just men, but nowadays I think people are trending to be more in that more open to hiring people of different sexes. But at the end of the day, what matters is what is the needs of the company. If the company is asking you to put in those 12-hour days and the person is a single mom and the daycare is only open for 8 hours, there's only so much that you can do. You can try and work things out with them, but would it not just be easier to hire somebody who doesn't have those restrictions? So that's the bottom line. And if somebody is meeting those requirements of the application position, then I don't see why it cannot be either a woman or a man filling the position. But if there is issues, let's say pregnancy and all those things you described, then it's just business, right? It's business. Business is business. And so
business is business.
That's what.
You're right. Business is business. But from what we have just discussed, we can see that there are limitations, to a woman's job or to a woman getting employed, because people will look at the monthly period. People will look at if they actually have very young children. People will look at their stamina at work. And they look at the stability of the home. Are they married, or are they single, or are they having shared custody, or all kinds of things come into play. But I think it would be unjust and unfair if we now say, okay, even though let's say the woman is producing equal or measurable amount of work as the man, to say, okay, because you have all these limitations, let me give you a lower wage. I think it would be unfair. But what I would advise is that any woman that is looking for employment, or any lady, you have to have your wages discussed from the onset. And I find it interesting because when you go for an interview and you have been given the job, the employer will say, don't discuss your wages with any other employee. Why is that so?
Yeah, those are the little tricks that people can do to limit the work.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I would say still that I think the wages are, for the most part, it's equal. At least here in where we are in Canada, the wages tend to be pretty equal. The reason there might be a discrepancy might just be due to the amount of hours worked. And generally, it's easier for a man who is not having any children or any of those responsibilities to be able to put in those long hours and move up the company ladder. And in that sense, it's if they are willing to put in the effort, we cannot now say that, you know, somebody else who has limitations, whether a man or a woman, it could be another man too, right, that's not putting in those hours because he has kids he's taking care of. If he is a single dad, for example, it wouldn't be fair to say, oh, because he's a single dad, but this person who's putting in these long hours, let's not reward him, let's reward the person who didn't put in those hours. I don't think that's fair. And from a business perspective, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if you are doing the same work, you should receive the same pay. And if that's by the hour and you've committed to that, you should try and keep it equal because you put in the effort and you deserve to be rewarded for it, whether man or woman.
Yeah, but I think there should be no bias. But at the same time, I remember one minister long ago, so many years when I was in the university, said, don't hire who you cannot fire, right? I think that was Benson, that was Archbishop Benson. I said, don't hire whom you cannot fire. It's always ringing at the back of my mind. Because there was one time I placed an ad, I needed a tech, and somebody, I looked at the name looked feminine to me. I thought it's a lady because I wanted a lady because of the clients I have. They just are comfortable with a lady tech. So when I called, but it was a masculine voice. So I was asking, I said, oh, I'm sorry, I think I got the wrong number. He said, no, that's my name. I said, okay, did you apply for a position of a technician? He said, yeah, he did. I said, okay. I said, oh, but I'm so sorry, I don't think I need a male. I said, why? Why? You don't like me or you don't? And actually, he had his a photograph on in his resume. And I looked at him, so masculine, so big. I said, I hope this person is not going to beat me up. Well, actually, that was not the reason. So I just told him immediately. You know, I wanted to be upfront with him. I said, well, I'm sorry, I cannot employ you because of my clients. They are not comfortable in having a male technician. But in some other pharmacies, they may want to have a male technician because those male people can bounce off, you know, anybody who wants to misbehave in the pharmacy. But because I don't need that type of personality as at that time, I had to look for a female technician. It's not that I was biased against him. I had to make it known to him that I was not biased against him. Anyway, before we round up, I just have this quick passage from the scripture. I'm sorry, I didn't get the... Oh, actually, it's here. There was a parable that Jesus said in the Bible. It's taken from Matthew chapter 20 verses 1 to 16. We're not going to read it. You can take your time and you know peruse through the scriptures. So in this scripture, what it was actually saying, it was talking about some people who were employed in the first hour, that the master went out to the field and employed some people in the first hour, and he went out again in the third hour, went out again in the sixth hour, went out again in the 11th hour, and he got all these people in. But at the end of the day, they were given the same amount, like wage, for the work done. But you can see that some people had a longer number of hours and others had shorter number of hours. Can we say this was unfair or unjust?
Yeah, I would say it's not unjust in that case, because in that case was more concerning. Well, in a sense, it is fair because the people agreed to the wage, and that's what you mentioned earlier, that the people did agree to the wage, and so therefore that's what they earned. And if later on a company decides they want to increase that starting salary, then it's incumbent on that person to go and negotiate that again with the owner. Now, of course, Jesus is just saying that in his case because his own was more, he's just trying to illustrate a point that you negotiated for that. It's not that Christ will not reward us in heaven with more things. He recognizes when we have put in work, and that's why we do have, you know, the crown of life and this crown and the victor's crown and all these other different crowns depending on the work done.
Yes.
So Christ is reasonable in that sense.
Yeah.
But the point is that if you have negotiated something with your boss and you agree to that, you cannot now later complain and say, oh, but now I see this person has more, so I want that more. Well, then you have to renegotiate that. You can't now just say I should have it and there should be no discussion about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So to just cap it up, you know, that parable was talking about the entry level, right? So if people are going to get into heaven, so there's a basic entry level. But when you get in, there will now be different categories of reward. So, but coming back again to the employment sector, you know, so it's very important, whether you're a male, whether you're a female, to discuss your wages and all your conditions and terms and everything before you start. Because after starting, you can't now turn back and say, oh no, my friend is having. That is why they put that secret. Don't disclose your wages with your friend or with any other person. It's personal to you, because that is what you have negotiated, right? So, but if you realize that, oh, my negotiation was not good enough, you can go back and renegotiate. The employer can look at it and, you know, make amends or increase your wages, or if you're not satisfied, you can look for a better place, you know, to go work. So what I want to say is that men should not be biased against, women should not be biased against, but just consider the quality and the quantity of work you're going to get from that individual and negotiate the wages and then go from there. I hope you're blessed. Anyway, thank you for listening. We're going to be right back very soon. God bless you. Shalom. Bye.